All right, Jordan. So this is a tough problem because what I notice first when I look at it is that there are three terms here, and my first coefficient, that 5, is bigger than 1. So that's kind of the hint that this is going to be one of the problems that takes is the most challenging to factor for these things. Uh, and so we have to use our, a little more complicated process here. And so what I do to get started on these is I take my A value, which is this 5 over here, and my C value, which is my 24 over here on the end, and I multiply those together to get 120. And that's kind of the number that I'm going to be working with here today. And what I want to do with this 120 is I want to try to find the numbers that multiply to give me 120 and add to give me this middle term here, 26. And the reason why I'm adding is because of this plus sign here on the end. If it was a minus, I'd be subtracting instead. So I want to try to find the numbers that multiply to give me 120 and add to give me 26. And because this 120 is kind of a bigger more difficult number to work with, you probably just want to start making factor pairs for 120 until you find the pair of factors that does what you want. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start listing out factor pairs until I find the pair that adds to give me 26. So of course I can do 1 times 120, but that's 121 if I add those up, so that doesn't work. So 2 goes into 120 60 times, so 2 times 60 would be a possibility, but 2 plus 60 doesn't work either. I could do 3 times 40, that doesn't work. I could do 4 times 30, but that doesn't work. I could do 5 times 24, but that doesn't work. And then, 5 times 24. And finally, I could do 6 times 20, and that's actually the pair that I want. 6 times 20, because that gives me 120 when I multiply, and 26 when I add. So that's the pair that I'm working with here, the 6 and the 20. And that's going to help me fill in my parentheses here when I go to break this thing down. Okay, so 5x squared, there's only one way to make that with multiplication. That's 5x times x, right? And when I go and I multiply my outside and my inside products here, I'm going to get the numbers 6 and 20 over here. Okay, that's my goal, is to make those when I do my outside and my inside products in this process, right? So then I'm going to figure out what goes where. Is I'm going to ask myself, when I do my outside product, 5 times what is going to give me one of these two factors? It's not going to be 6. That doesn't really work. So it's got to be the 20, right? So you want to ask yourself, 5 times what is going to give me that positive 20 over there? And the answer is going to be plus 4, so I can fill that in. And then my x coefficient here is a 1, so 1 times something needs to give me my other factor, which is the 6. So this has got to be a plus 6 over here. Okay, so once you get those numbers figured out, that's the hard part that's done. All you've got to do at that point is kind of ask yourself, how do I make my outside and my inside product equal those two numbers? If you've taken your GCF out, there's only going to be one way that works. So that's kind of the process that I would go through there. There's other methods, and if you're more comfortable with one of those, then that's totally fine. But that's the way that I factor those. So hopefully that's helpful. Please let me know if you don't understand anything or if I can help with anything else.